Thank you, Ann. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Byron, and thanks to SCR for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here because I do love to talk about mediation. The ones of you that know me know that I'm pretty passionate about it. So we're going to get started, and I hope when we finish this hour you're going to know a good bit about what's going on in the mediation world. I am very passionate about the mediation program. I started mediating probably in 2004. I had taken some local training, some SCR training, and I started mediating after that and did a pretty good job. Actually, my first couple of were successful, so it kind of got me on a roll. But then I went to Chicago in December, I think it was 2005, and from Chicago, when I finished that training, and we're going to talk about that training more later, I was really just gung-ho about it. I was so excited. It is worth every dime of anything you've ever, better than any training you've ever gone to. So, but like I said, I'm going to get into that more later. And when I came back from the training up there, it's 2.5 days training, and I set up me along with Catherine West and Jim Peters, who was here before Nick Cromitis, helped to set up the mediation program in Greenwood. Jim helped us decide how many mediators we needed for the size of our town, and helped us to know which program to adopt. We adopted, and we'll talk about that more later too, we adopted option 2, which is offer mediation before you do anything else, pretty much. So we got that in place. I addressed the board of directors and got all that approved with them. And with Catherine's help, we got the mediation committee in place, and it's remained active with actually the same members since that time, because it's a close-knit committee. There are people on the committee that don't mediate because they choose not to, but they have taken the classes along with Catherine, our AE. She's taken the classes too. And the whole Greenwood Association is very, very into mediation, and they know how it works. We do mock mediations. We keep it forefront, so the realtors there do not hesitate to use it. And in fact, they are happy when they get to send some clients that are causing problems to mediation. So there's only one other person in Greenwood that does mediate, and that's Donna Brankowski. And she is like me. She cares very deeply about the mediations and how you can bring a person into a room, or two parties into a room, who absolutely hate each other, and at times watch them walk out with a hug before they go. And that actually happens. We've seen it happen, and we've seen it happen lots of times. So because Donna cares deeply, by the way, I trained Donna. I did a class in Greenwood, and she was trained in Greenwood, and she's excellent. So and that's pretty much the story of how I got started with mediation and how it works in Greenwood, and that it is very effective. And we are probably 90+% effective in Greenwood with settlements. According to NAR, they're 80+%. And I think nationwide. And I think the reason that we are so successful there is because we do keep it forefront with the members, and they are so familiar with it. And plus, we just, they know that the two of us that mediate are not, that we're not going to take sides, and they know that we're going to do it the right way because that's the way we both choose to do it. And they do know that we are absolutely excited about how our mediations come out. I remember just thinking back when Donna did her first mediation. I was so excited and she was so excited, and because I wanted her first one to just be perfect, and I wanted it to work, I wanted it to settle, and we talked before she went, and in fact we talked several times. But she went to the mediation. I said, Donna, call me the minute you get out. And I just paced the floor till she called. And then when she called, I think we both just screamed. She said, I did it. It's settled. And we just were so excited. So I guess that's why our program works, because we do get excited. And I mean, sometimes I have actually gotten up and just hugged the people when they come to a settlement. So we are that in touch with it. And I think that's how you have to be. If you really want to have an effective program, you have to care, and you have to let the people know you care. We're going to talk about how mediation works. Actually, the main thing is you have upset parties, very highly emotional upset parties, two or more, come in and they actually sit down and talk to each other. I don't know if you've ever had a fight with your husband or wife, but usually one of you is not going to sit down and shut up while the other one preaches. So I know we don't at my house, but we actually insist that they sit down and one party is quiet while the other party tells their side, and vice versa. And they do. It doesn't matter how mad they are. They do that. Mediation is non-judgmental and impartial. There is absolutely no judge, nobody telling you what to do, nobody telling you how to settle. You don't even sit yourself at the table to look like a judge. As a rule, I try very hard to use a round table. So I don't even sit at the head of the table, because, I mean, like if we had an oblong table, I would probably sit here and let the one party sit over here and one over there. You seat the parties so they can see each other. They need to talk to each other. Mediation is quick. In Greenwood, we usually set it up just as soon as we can make contact with the parties. Now, sometimes we do have weeks. It does take us weeks to get the parties to agree. Sometimes they don't want to do it, and they have to be talked into it, and they don't have time to fool with it. And then they schedule it, and then they change their mind because they are threatened by mediation. And that's what I'd like for everybody to know. It's a warm and friendly atmosphere, as warm and friendly as it can be under the circumstances. So it's non-judgmental and impartial. It's quick, low cost, very low cost in Greenwood, and confidential. Nobody puts it in the paper or records it in the courthouse how it's settled. The settlement can't be taken any further as far as, if it settles, it settles. But if it doesn't settle, you can't use anything you learned in there to go to arbitration or to the court. So it's confidential, and that's good. It's relaxed and non-threatening. I try as hard as I can, and to the people that I teach, I encourage them to try to make it a relaxed atmosphere. And I know in Greenwood, and I'm going to refer to Greenwood, often, because Greenwood is the place that, I know the best. We do some serious setting up for the mediations. We have chocolate candy everywhere. We have coffee. We have water. We have drinks if they want it, mints, and we just make them feel they come in the door and Catherine makes them feel at home. We do it at SCR, the GAR, Greenwood Association office in Greenwood, if possible, because you never do one in a place where the hostility is. You always do it in a neutral place so they won't feel threatened. So, but they are welcomed from the minute they walk in. There's never any indication that everything's not just very relaxed. In mediation, the parties determine the outcome. The mediator does not determine the outcome. The mediator absolutely does not. They guide the discussion and keep it going in the right direction to be sure that everything keeps going and not backing up. But the parties they don't have to settle, but if they do, then they make the settlement themselves. They determine. In mediation, there's no lengthy exhibits. Sometimes people like to come with a whole bunch of paperwork, and I really discourage them to do that. If there's a piece of paper that can help and shed some light on what happened, it's okay, but it's not to go through a bunch of exhibits. It's more how this affected me, what you did to me and why you did it and what I thought about it, is what needs to come out. I make sure at the start of every discussion that everyone gets a chance to talk. After I tell everyone the rules, then I let one party talk and tell their entire side of the story. Does not matter how much the other party disagrees. I ask them to please not roll their eyes like my husband does when we argue. He loves to roll his eyes, and I ask them to please not do that, not say anything, just sit there and take it. Take notes, and then when the one person gets through, then the other person gets to tell their side and they can pay them back. And I always thank them over and over for, just sitting there and taking it. I know it's hard because I've been through one myself. It's hard to keep your mouth shut. When somebody, especially saying things about you. But I make sure everyone gets to say everything that they to say. I make sure all emotions are put on the table. I want them out. Because unless every emotion is put on the table, there's going to be no settlement. Long as the parties are holding stuff back, there's going to be no settlement. They are not going to. They have got to, and sometimes it takes them a while, but they have got to tell that other person what they think of them before and they got to tell them. And sometimes they get kind of loud and a little ugly with it. And we encourage them not to, but we sit there and take it for a little while to get it out, because like I said, once it's out, then they'll start getting a little bit more ready to negotiate. Mediators control the discussion, not the substance. They can talk about anything they want to talk about, and sometimes they get off into all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do about the mediation, and you have to let them ramble on for a while, because bottom line, people just want to be heard. That is the bottom line. They want to be heard, and if they don't get to be heard, they're going to settle not one single thing. So we don't control this substance, we control the discussion. Mediation versus arbitration. Mediation is faster and cheaper than arbitration. From what I hear, I've never been in an arbitration, but it's much easier. To get through a mediation than an arbitration. There's the parties have no control in the arbitration. They have great control in the mediation. There's no compromise and arbitration. None. There is a judge or an arbitrator, a winner, and a loser. And you have no say so about it. So if you choose not to settle at mediation and you're going to arbitration of the court, instead of maybe splitting it with somebody, you may lose it all. So there's a winner and a loser in arbitration. There's a wide range of solutions in mediation. You can get real creative. You can I mean, in number swap out, where you do this for me and I'll do that for you. It usually improves the relationship, and the biggest part of the time since I've been doing them, the parties leave happier with each other. Even if they don't settle, I have had very few people ever walk out mad. And I've told y'all this before in when I was teaching a class, that we had one guy come in and he was so angry. He was red faced. He wouldn't look at anybody. He would not he was not gonna let anybody do him like He slung his fist the whole time. He was beat red in the face, and I am not to settle one single thing. I'll sit here and listen because I said I would. Anyway, he settled. He got through, and one of the mediators was observing that day. One of the mediation committee ladies was observing that day, and we couldn't get rid of him. He wanted to sit there and crack jokes, and he hugged us all, and he just sat there and shot the bull with us and cracked jokes, and it was like we had something else to do, but we absolutely couldn't get rid of him. He was a totally different person. So see, Catherine's in the office, our AE is in the office, and she sees these people come in, and then she sees them go out. And they're not the same people when they go out 90% of the time. They really are not. And I probably don't need to tell y'all this again, but I think I'm going to because it's a good one. I had this guy that it took me weeks to talk him into coming to mediation. Weeks. And he chewed on my ear for 3 weeks about just ugly, just trying to make me mad, just really trying to make me mad. He chewed my ear and over and said ugly words, and I just sit there and listen to him. I thought, yeah, he's not going to make me mad. He's trying to make me mad. He's not going to. Mediators don't get mad. So I'm going to take it. And I sat there and listened to him, and my husband was, I was up on the balcony in my office, and my husband was downstairs, and he was about ready to pick the phone up and say a few words himself. But anyway, I let him talk, and he finally asked me, he said, "How much do you charge an hour? Tell me this, I'll come. Tell me how much you charge an hour." Byron, can I say how much I charge an hour?
Yes, you're on the list. Our mediator list. We have all
Yeah,
the
okay. All right. So I told him $50 an hour, and it was split between the two parties, so that's $25 a piece. Usually they're over in 2 hours. He said, "Well, I tell you what, I'm coming, but somebody's going to pay me $60 an hour." And he said, "I will not take one dime less than $60 an hour." I said, "Well, nobody's going to pay you $60 an hour, so we're just going to have to cancel the mediation, because I don't know of a soul who's going to pay you $60 an hour to come." And he said, "And I'm not paying you, and I'm not settling." I said, "Okay, we'll just cancel it." Well, he called me back in a day or two and said, "Well, he's going to come. He'll just see what happens." So this was a good while back, and I wasn't as quite as strong in my feelings about mediation as I am now. He wouldn't. I really wasn't nervous, but I thought, boy, this is going to be interesting. And I walked in the door, and he was there before me, and I'd never seen him before, but he introduced himself, just as friendly, nice-looking young man, just as friendly as he can be. Went in the mediation, sat there, listened to what was said, never was ugly, never mentioned the money. And this is the truth. When we got through, he settled probably, I think it was maybe an hour. Wasn't any longer than an hour. And he paid me more than he was supposed to pay me. I mean, that's what happens in mediation. And the only thing I can tell you about that is he got his frustrations out to me on the telephone. So we sometimes it takes us weeks to talk people into coming to mediation, but if we can ever get them there, we pretty well got them. So, and because we do care. So that's pretty much how mediation versus arbitration. Mediation improves relationships too, and like I said, there's a wide range of solutions, and you never know how they're going to end. You can speculate all you want to, and sometimes they end and they settle, but it's like, it just about kills me how they settle, because I don't think they ought to settle, but of course I can't say anything about that. I'm just so happy it settles, and if they happy, I'm happy. So that's how mediation versus arbitration. I don't know why anybody'd ever go to arbitration when they can go to mediation. And Byron, how much is it for arbitration?
Each prize side puts $250.
$250? Wow. Okay, and do they bring lawyers? Sometimes. So it's quite a bit more expensive. Okay, the role of a mediator. Like I've already said, control the process. Be sure all the paperwork's done. Now, there is paperwork that has to be done before you can proceed to the mediation. And if you use South Carolina state contract, pretty much as far as I'm concerned, your paperwork's done, because you sign a contract saying if a conflict arises that you will agree to mediate before you start any other court proceedings. And you have to be sure all the right parties are at the table. Sometimes a party will be there. I know one mediation settled somewhere, was the husband there and not the wife, or the wife and not the husband, and she settled it. But then when she got home, the husband didn't like the settlement, so that one was undone because the right parties weren't at the table. So you really have to be sure you got the right parties, but that's something that should be addressed before you ever get to the table. Be sure to bring the right parties there. That's important. You guide the discussion. You make sure that people aren't talking when other people are talking, as much as you can. After each person tells their side, then you just start talking back in two. And, you let them go at it for a while till you see that they're not getting anywhere, and then you have to stop them. There's a lot of assumptions and thoughts that precede a mediation, where people preconceive notions that the other person was out to get them from the very start. Especially with repairs, that comes up. They covered it up. The basement flooded the first day, first rain. I know they covered it up. We've had that. We've had them several like that where they come in thinking that the person just absolutely did that to them on purpose. So you have to be sure that you can work past that. And the main thing you got to do is listen. Not just hear, you've got to listen. You have got to take in every word they say, every word. There's a difference between listening and hearing. You've got to hear. You've got to listen and take it in. You got to maintain eye contact with them. You got to make sure that they know that you're hearing them. you got to address emotions as they arise, and believe me, they do arise. They arise greatly, often and a lot. But you try to address them. A lot of times people will repeat themselves over and over and over till you kind of summarize and let them know that everybody's heard them. You know, everybody knows what they think, but you don't say it like that. But anyway, you got to address the emotions. And then when it looks like you're at an impasse, you need to caucus. Caucus means to take one of the parties into a separate room where the parties that are left can't hear, and talk about some things there. In a caucus, parties will talk to you more freely, and you can talk with them more freely in a caucus. You can also use your BATNA. BATNA means your best alternative to a negotiated settlement. When you get them in caucus, if the mediator does see that there's really not a leg to stand on, you can say, you need to think about this. Do you really want to take this further? Do you really want to go to court? Do you really want to go to arbitration? What if you lose? Your case is not real strong. What if you lose? You cannot go back in there and say that to the other parties, but you can say it to them. And whatever you discuss in a caucus, you can't go back and tell the other parties unless they okay it. And in a caucus, you can make a suggestion. So what if they offered you this? Is there any amount that you would take less? And I won't tell them that unless you want me to. And usually they'll come up with some amount. It might be 200 out of 5,000. They'll usually come up with some amount. They'll cut it, and you thank them profusely for cutting it, that $200, because that means they start in a little bit of negotiation. And usually I let them, when the caucus is over, usually I let them go back in and tell the people, unless they just want me to. I let them, so it looks like it's coming from them and it wasn't my idea. Anyway, you don't share what you learned in caucus unless you've asked permission to, and most of the time people say okay. You keep the parties moving in the right direction. You help format a settlement, and sometimes I let the parties write the settlement. Well, you have a settlement sheet, and sometimes I let them write it. And there's any amount of things you can write on that settlement sheet. I've had people write that, and of course everything's confidential anyway. I've had people to write that it absolutely goes no further. That's very important to people. If I'm going to settle with them, I don't want them talking about it. I don't want to have to worry about a lawsuit later. I don't want to have to worry about going to ethics. If I settle with them, I want it to stop here forever and ever. So we had some discussion, I think, with Byron over email about, putting in there that no further ethics or anything could be done, but the other person agrees to it. If it's all right with everybody and they agree, it's part of the settlement. So, and you break down the barriers, and a lot of times what they say is their problem's not even their problem. I mean, there are so many things, and you can relate back to when you get mad with your husband or your wife, and most of the time the straw that broke the camel's back is really not what the problem was. His problem's all behind there. So you try to break down those barriers, and you try to solve she talks to me like I'm she's talking down to me. She called me Sweetie Pie. You know, well, how would you like for her to call you? You know, how would you like for her to dress you? What would you like her to call you? You know, just small barriers like that you need to break down. And there again, keep your eye contact with the person that's talking. Now, I have always in my life, I guess I inherited it from my mama, tried to listen to half a dozen conversations at one time. And I thought I was really going to have a hard time with that in mediation. But when I sit there, I tune the whole world out and look at the person that's talking, and I listen. In fact, I like to not hear the different sides of the stories before the mediation. As I talk to them on the phone or by email, they do like to tell me their sides. And I do tell them, you know, tell me a little bit, but I want to hear the whole story, not bits and pieces. I want it to all come out and flow so I can keep it together. So just keep eye contact and be sure they heard. South Carolina mediators. I think we got a brochure that Mike's gonna put up for the South Carolina mediators. Okay, that's fine. And I need to move along too, talking too much. South Carolina mediators are trained and experienced professionals. They have to take the professional standards every year. They take mediation training of some sorts every other year. They need to take enough training so they can handle emotions and conflicts and communications. They need to be sure that's the NAR.
Oh, you need that one?
Yeah, I need the SCR one. Yeah, the brochure. That's fine. Anyway, they're highly trained as much as you can be. I think the SCR would love for them to go to Chicago for that training. It's a little cost prohibitive though. So, you know, as you can afford to go if you intend to be a mediator, it would be fantastic if you took that training. You can't take just one class and be a good mediator. You either got to study, take several other classes. You need to dig into it till you understand it. And I need to tell you that all the training in the world cannot make you a mediator if you don't care about the people in making a settlement. So you need to care, and you need to get comfortable with everything about mediation, how it works, how you can make it come to a successful settlement, and you need to have your heart in the settlement. Okay, now we're going to talk about the National Association training. In January of 2002, National Association of Realtors determined that they needed to have a more quicker and more cost-effective way to handle disputes that did not involve the court or arbitration. And this was in January 2002, enters mediation. They set up the mediation program. And at that time, they started the training in Chicago, and they subsidize it. It's 2.5 days of very intense training, and they subsidize it down to $150. I mean, you can take a course that would cost you several $1,000 for $150. Of course, you got to pay your expenses. You got to go to Chicago and eat and pay for your transportation and everything. But that is one more heck of a training up there. It is just absolutely the best, and I strongly encourage people to go. The course is taught by a Northwestern University Law School professor and a Duke University Law School professor and a NAR Educator of the Year. And when you tell who it's being taught by, you think it might be a little bit maybe stiff, more court-like, but those instructors are so approachable. They are very warm and friendly, know exactly how to keep your attention. And as I said, it's 2.5 days. It's very intense. I would go back in a heartbeat if I thought I had the money just to go back to Chicago again and take it. It is the best training of my entire 32-year career, and I think my little statements on their brochure up there where I said that. I highly recommend you go if you plan to do any mediation. I would probably not be a mediator today had I not gone to that training. Even though I already was mediating, I did not get grounded in it till after I took that training, as I said earlier. You can go to the NAR website and get more information. It's going to be in, I think we have the brochure, Mike has the brochure up now. It's going to be June 27, 28, and 29th of this year. They've been doing it twice a year, but probably, I assume, like everything else, just, everybody having to cut back. It will be good for you to go in June, because I went in December and it was not good. It was cold. I still enjoyed it though, and Chicago's a really neat city too, but those instructors are just outstanding. I highly recommend that program. We're going to talk about the AE's role, what I think the AE's role is, and what Catherine's role is in the Greenwood Association in mediation. I think that they should be knowledgeable enough to be able to talk about the program to the realtors and to the public, and be able to talk about it be able to articulate it right and know exactly what they're talking about. I do think they ought to take a mediation class, at least one. They should sit through one all-day class, and I think a lot of them have. They do need to have all paperwork available so you can request mediation, all the in between the requesting and the settlement. There's a lot of paperwork. You can get it off I know you can get it off the SCR website, the NAR website. Is it on the South Carolina website? Byron says it's on the South Carolina website also. And I know that he and John Carroll, the other attorney here, have put a little disclaimer down at the bottom to help cover the your liability, and to make sure everybody understands it when they settle, that it is a legal settlement. If you're using the state contract mediation, you already agree in that contract that you'll mediate if any problem comes up, and that means realtors, buyers, sellers also, and as far as I'm concerned, anybody else that has to do with the contract. A mediation committee should be in place at each association. Even if you don't want to mediate there, if you send your mediation somewhere else, I still think a mediation committee should be in place just to keep it in forefront of everybody, and to keep it out so people won't forget. I know, sometimes still in Greenwood, and it's in front of everybody all the time. Somebody say, well, I talked to a lawyer. Well, you don't need to talk to a lawyer. Well, you can talk to a lawyer, but if you go to mediation most of the time, according to NAR, you don't need to bring a lawyer, because well, in Greenwood we're mediating binders that, you know, are very low, $500, $1,000, $2,000. So the reason for the mediation is so you can get it done very inexpensively. And like I said, I do think a mediation